Vampires hide. That's kind of their whole deal. The masquerade, the scheming, the ghouls, the blood bond. These are all in service to the cloak and dagger approach of the vampire. Meanwhile, werewolves do not hide. They are spiritual, holy warriors protecting the earth from conniving, corrupting forces. A werewolf is a killing machine, the apex predator in the world of darkness. And somehow they are losing this war very badly. This is Werewolf The Apocalypse. You imagine to create a werewolf, you need to be bitten. But in World of Darkness, werewolves are born. You are born a werewolf. Now, you might not know it until a certain age or until a certain inciting incident happens in your life that causes a transformation. The day of your transformation could be the worst day of your life. You kind of black out and then you wake up in the middle of the forest covered in blood that is probably not yours. Not every first transformation has to be violent, but it's a pretty good plot hook. So in World of Darkness, werewolves don't call themselves werewolves, they call themselves Garou. Now, you probably have an image of werewolves in your head from pop culture and movies and all sort of stuff. The werewolves in Werewolf the Apocalypse are very different, but in ways that are going to make sense to you. One of the cool deviations from the popular pop culture werewolf is that Garou have 5 different forms. So these range from being able to turn into an adorable little pupper, basically, all the way into the thing that you imagine when you think werewolf. Their Krynos form. It's the war form, it's what's on the thumbnail, it is what was seen in Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 1, it is what you think when you think werewolf, and it is awesome. It is 9 to 10 feet of muscle and fur and claws and fangs. It is the werewolf's final form. But what does it mean? Mechanically, the Garou in their Krynos form is a regenerating magical bulldozer. And as you can imagine, it's the opposite of subtle. It's very hard to have, Krynos in downtown without causing at least some eyebrows to be raised. In this form, it generally can't even speak human tongue that much. You could say sentences or words, it depends. Returning to our Krynos form in downtown, there's one thing in the werewolf's favor, and that is that it is such a intimidating and scarring image for the human mind that when our mortals in downtown do see our Krynos werewolf, they are going to enter delirium. There's a switch in the human mind originating from prehistory where humans were hunted by werewolves that makes the mortal run away or freeze, your normal kind of fear response. But more importantly, what delirium is, it causes them to simply forget having seen a werewolf. To save the mortal's sanity, it just makes them forget ever seeing a werewolf. This is a mechanic that is useful to werewolves. They don't need to worry as much about their version of the masquerade. Speaking of the masquerade, we love vampires, so let's talk about vampires by doing a little bit of power scaling, okay? Power scaling vampires to werewolves. There's going to be many asterisks. There's going to be many asterisks. When you press Shift 8 on your keyboard, that thing, there's going to be many of those because of additions. Do claws do aggravated or superficial damage? Who knows? Okay, so we're just going to look at various. This is going to be a general comparison. Broadly speaking, if you were to power scale vampires to werewolves, okay, on the vampire side we have a neonate, which is like a your ordinary kind of vampire, and they come up against your brand new, like just created Garou in their Krynos form. Even if your neonate has great stats and has leveled up some of their disciplines, they simply get bodied by your starter Garou. We need to power scale all the way to an elder generally to see an area where you can survive an encounter against a Krynos. Elders at least have 1 discipline master, they have 5 dots or more. The disciplines the elder would need is something like fortitude to soak up the insane damage, or celerity to have a hope of dealing enough damage in the few turns that it takes for a werewolf to kill you. The other thing about elders is blood potency. It allows you to add dice to your attacks, all this stuff. If we're looking at a werewolf fight, you have to deal insane damage in a single turn to out regenerate them. You're gonna need a pretty buffed up kindred to be able to survive a fight, let alone win one. And lore-wise, kindred fear werewolves for a very good reason. Oh, and I forgot to mention, kindred have their magical supernatural powers of disciplines. The Garou also have magical supernatural powers, which they can use in Krynos form. This begs the question, why do the Garou need multiple forms when the Krynos form is so powerful? The super murder wolfman seems plenty powerful enough. You can just solve any problem. Like, you're gonna solve the problem with violence, but you're gonna solve the problem, right? Well, as you can imagine, in Krynos form, there is going to be some cost, and that cost is kind of your sanity. Basically, when you're in Krynos form, every moment that your in that form, you need to kill something. So every turn, you have to kill something, or else you risk going into a frenzy. It is very similar to a vampire's frenzy, except you are the supernatural equivalent of an aircraft carrier. So when a Krynos form frenzies, you lose control of your character and you go on a murder spree. No longer able to distinguish friend or foe, and you will kill, you have to kill everything in the vicinity to maybe snap out of it. While in frenzy, you either die, which is frankly unlikely. You're far more likely to kill everybody in a city block than you are to be put down, including killing your allies, whether they be fellow Garou or mortal allies or anything like that. Only once everything is shredded and dead will you recover from the frenzy. All of this makes using the Krynos form a little bit of a risk and used not as frequently. That's where the other forms go useful. If you want to go scout, a perimeter or something like that, Pupper form is going to do you way better. All of your transformations, your magic, stuff like that is based on rage. Rage is the Garou's vitae, kind of. Capital R rage is the fuel for all things Wyrm. It is a magical wellspring of primal anger. For Garou, rage is their gift and their curse, same as vitae is for kindred. Rage makes them effective at killing and disemboweling their enemies, but it can also make it a struggle to solve problems without violence. It can be an issue to stay composed and clear-headed as a Garou without losing your rage, because the thing you need to look for is not becoming too mellowed out, kind of. Can lose the werewolf inside of you. It can swing either way. So if you have too much rage, you can lose it. If you have too little rage, you can also lose it. It is a balancing act. Moving on to the moon. As you can imagine, the moon is kind of a big part of the werewolf thing. How does it relate? Well, the moon is a great spirit called Luna. Luna relates to werewolves in some ways. The thing that really matters is that there's different classes of werewolves. So these range from your warrior types to your tricksters to your kind of sages and lore tellers. What type of werewolf you are depends on the form of the moon it was when you first transformed. So a full moon makes you the warrior class. All of these classes have different archetypes, they have different abilities, all sort of stuff. Pretty cool. Beyond that, werewolves are sorted into tribes. There's many of them. These would be your equivalent to your clans in Vampire the Masquerade, varying a lot in what they're about, what their archetypes are, what they generally do, how they integrate into broader werewolf society. All of that, they are amazing. Hopefully make a full video on that. But we cannot get lost in the sauce today, because every single one of those tribes, except a few, are fighting in the same war. Most of these tribes are fighting for Gaia. So I'm gonna keep it simple, but it is very cool and worth looking into yourself. Gaia is the earth, not the rocks, not anything. It's like the earth spirit of earth nature, right? So the planet as a spirit god, the nature of the planet as a spirit god, kind of. Spirit, a mother, that sort of thing. The werewolves were created alongside other magical creatures to be her claws, her protectors. Werewolf cosmology and lore and foundational myth, just as the vampire one, is very filled with ums and ahs and a bit of mysticism. What is true, what is not true, what is myth, what is not myth. As far as the Garou understand it, they are there to protect Gaia, and they have a whole awesome system of mysticism and religiosity, all of that understanding and history around it. They have a very particular view on the world, and it is super interesting. One of the best parts of Werewolf, but also one of the hardest to get into. When you play Vampire the Masquerade, the hardest hurdle to get over is understanding vampiric society. There's the Camarilla, the sects, what is a prince, what does it do, but it's ultimately pretty simple. A vampire sees the world much the same way, an ordinary person would, just under a different power structure. Meanwhile, for the Garou, there is nowhere near as much of a power structure as there is a view on the world, a mysticism, a culture that you have to kind of understand, and that is the main hiccup with Werewolf that people get stuck on. So let's ask the question, what is the war that we've been talking about? Let's talk about the triad. It consists of three great forces. Firstly, the wild. The wild creates. It is unfiltered chaos of creation. There is the weaver, which takes what the wild creates, gives it shape and rules and order. And finally, there's the Wyrm, whose job is to destroy, to make space for new things to exist. So the triad makes, shapes, and then destroys. A process of creative destruction that in its pure form is neither good nor evil, it just is. It is the processes of the universe, but the Weaver got tired of things it creates being broken down and destroyed. So it tried to lock things down forever, and it trapped the Wyrm in its web. Now the Wyrm doesn't destroy what is finished, it destroys anything it can, all the time for nothing. The balance of the triad has been destroyed. None of these forces are evil. They just are. The wild is the creation and breath of life, but unchecked it is chaos and mutation. The Weaver is order and structure, but unchecked it is tyranny and stagnation. And the Wyrm is the most necessary of them all. The cosmic janitor that makes new things be feasible in the first place, as it makes space for them. Death, decay, recycle. Without those, nothing new can be made ever again. And this is where the Garou's culture and worldview and perspective comes in. To the Garou, everything in the world is a function of one of these three natural forces. They see a tree as representative of the function of the wild, but so is an artist representative of the function of the wild. The easiest to picture by far is the Weaver, because most objects we see are processed, transformed, manufactured for human use, for human consumption. The phone you are watching this is a product of the Weaver. So are roads and houses, but also lawyers and judges. All of these would be representative of the Weaver. And finally, the Wyrm. Its original function was healthy death and decay. Things need to die to produce other things. How ancient fish turn to fossils, turn to sand, which make now beaches, that is thanks to the Wyrm and the wild being in healthy balance. So the honest associations of the Wyrm are things like garbage workers, but so would be fire and disease. Anything that clears away what is finished. But nowadays we can add things like nuclear bombs and oil spills and various new mortal inventions that have been added to society. What's important to the Garou What's important to understand is that to the Garou, context and function matters. Something can be Wyrm, wild and Weaver associated all at once depending on context or function. An artist who creates new art and becomes super popular and now has like a factory where they print out paintings or magnets for fridges, all that sort of stuff, they could be wild and Weaver, right? And then, you know, maybe they burn down forests for they could be wild Weaver Wyrm, right? The Garou's war is against the Wyrm, which is out of balance. It is causing these issues. Vape is a product of the Weaver. So the Garou's war is against the Wyrm because it is out of balance, it is causing all these issues. But the Wyrm cannot be seen. It is not a boss fight at the end of the dungeon. It is not a demon in a cave that can be seen, felt, or defeated, kind of. This is where all this background, all this cultural context for the Garou becomes super interesting. The above is just kind of how the Garou view the world. The Wyrm, the Weaver, the wild. It is their religion, it is their spirituality, it is their looking glass at the modern hellscape of our world today. This is their perspective on it. Again, the Wyrm is not a boss fight that you can have. There's no final level where you meet John Wyrm at the highest level of Weavster Tower to blow him up with a case of C4. The Wyrm is kind of just a descriptor, a way to look at the world, to contextualize it. The rot, the corruption, the untold destruction of nature, yes, but just of creation in general. The Garou will personify this. Workers cutting down forests are merely agents of the Wyrm, perpetuated by companies who are enthralled by the Wyrm, serving in its interests to pollute and destroy creation. This is descriptive. Can a company not do the same ends for the purposes completely unrelated to the Wyrm, for the quarterly reports, for the yearly earnings? The outcome is the same, but the way you describe it is a little different. The Weaver trapping the Wyrm might just be a personification of the Industrial Revolution or of humanity in general. Now, to be clear, all of this is literally true as well, kind of. There is the Umbra, a spirit realm with literal manifestations of agents representing these forces of nature, these spirits of nature. Garou can literally commune with the spirits of anything, whether that be the spirit of a particular rock or the spirit of all rocks. It gets metaphysical, it gets really weird, but it is awesome. And despite all their power and persistence, the Garou are losing their war. The enemy has no throat to slice, there's no neck to bite, no stomach to disembowel. Whether it's the immaterial spirit of the Wyrm sending out its agents to destroy Gaia, or whether it's the quarterly earning reports of multinational corporations that demand more lakes poisoned and trees destroyed so that the line may go up, the end result is the same. The werewolf is the perfect killing machine. Pointed at a monster, the monster dies. But you cannot claw a corporation. You cannot bite a profit margin. You cannot rip the throat of a quarterly report. The Garou are built to win brutal fights in Mortal Kombat, but the war they are fighting is not about that. Every claw they have is useless against the scale and industry of the machine they are fighting. Call that machine greed, call it humanity, call it capitalism, call it the Wyrm. The apocalypse has already happened. Gaia is dead, or close enough to dead that it doesn't really matter. You are not fighting to save the world, you are standing in what is left of it. Every year more is burned down to create fields to feed cattle which are slaughtered by the millions in steel slaughterhouses to serve you the fucking McTasty. There's one recent enough news story that really stuck with me. There was this Bitcoin miner facility set up next to some small town in America, and it is extraordinarily loud. It runs all hours of the day, just a constant, never-ending hum of thousands of GPUs in your eardrum for miles and miles. And these poor people who never signed up to have this thing next to them have to live day in and day out with this ear-piercing hum. Their animals, their pets, their animals are getting sick from it. They're getting ear damage, migraines. It is above any sort of safe level. And these people complain and complain. And all the company did was set up this half-assed, like, soundproofing fence to bounce the sound back. But it doesn't work because it's an open field. It's an open field. So this is already, like, amazing idea for the deepest level of hell type of punishment, but it gets even better. It's just like Satan couldn't think of this. So this Bitcoin miner uses tons and tons of electricity. It produces no jobs. There's like one person off site that comes like every week or whatever to like plug a GPU in and out. Okay, cool. It consumes tons and tons of electricity to produce nothing of value. You know, like there's no physical tangible thing to do with that token. It's just like the price of surplus electricity or whatever. And this facility is owned by a company which loses money. The devil could not come up with a scheme so diabolically evil for such incredibly pointless human suffering. All of that for no jobs, not even a profit. The epitome of just senseless consumption of energy, of resources, of land, and the byproduct is genuinely nightmarish. Like, the people can't even sell their homes. Who wants to live next to the migraine machine? Nobody wants to buy a house next to the migraine machine. They can't even move. That, in my opinion, is the Wyrm. So why do the Garou fight the war? The war is clearly lost. We are building migraine machines for no reason, to lose money, for fun. Well, the Garou do it for a variety of reasons. Not all of them believe the war is lost, but even if they believe the war is lost, sometimes a lost war is still worth fighting for, right? Not all Garou are good people fighting the right cause for the right reasons. Their history is filled with infighting and disputes that has been actively counterproductive to the safekeeping of Gaia, but they still fight. Broadly speaking, again, there's different tribes, and the way you view the triad and all that is going to be up to you personally. They fight so that the machine doesn't get to kill Gaia cleanly. Call it growth and walk away without ever needing to have any sort of repercussions for what they've done to reach their ends. Pure rage is often not the right strategy. Most Garou agree on that. There's no point in going out and firebombing a Walmart or killing all the workers in a mine, because the machine can build 1,000 more concrete car parks and hire new workers for the lithium mine. Is a system, it is a series of incentives, it is a function. There's tons of ways to fight the Wyrm, things that do not scream werewolf, but werewolves do all the same. Joining systems and institutions and changing them from the inside, hacking and uncovering corporate secrets, legal actions for damage to the environment and to communities, creating local systems to support people that need it. Journalists, activists, local actions can all stall the Wyrm in meaningful ways, block the Wyrm's expansion, building human institutions that resist its influence. The Garou can use restraint, master their own rage, and make more meaningful progress working together. The frenzy itself feeds the Wyrm after all. But it's hard to look at the world right now and not feel a bit of that rage. Elon Musk just became a trillionaire, so I mean, like, okay.